All right, Beth has a good question. Did the disciples, and she's talking about, I'm pretty sure, the apostles, the 12 apostles that Jesus chose out of all his disciples. He had lots of followers. Did the disciples have maybe a normal daily life, family duties, work, etc.? Well, up to the point they met Jesus, yes. They were like ordinary people doing ordinary jobs and different positions. We don't know many of them. We do know that 4 of them were fishermen, at least. And then they were described as fishermen. The publican, Matthew, surnamed Levi, or Levi, surnamed Matthew, is a Greek form of his name, and he's working for the Roman government. He was a tax collector, pretty hated. And that's an amazing thing that you think about them coming together, and Jesus called them together. The fishermen are having to pay these probably exorbitant money, revenues, to Matthew, the tax collector, was also stationed at Capernaum. Yeah, pretty interesting stuff. I love it. Well, they all left their jobs. Now, there were the sons of Zebedee, James and John, who had servants, and so their business was taken care of. Maybe it went down some because of their absence. But then again, God protected and provided for them. Think about the multitude of fishes that they received just then. Who knows how long that lasted? And then Philip, we don't know his. Philip, Thomas, Lebbaeus, also named Thaddeus, and various ones. We don't know their jobs and all that. Judas even of Iscariot, so they all have these jobs. Now, what happened as they started traveling is that people started giving of their means, just like pastors and full-time. Everybody's in full-time ministry wherever you are. You're full-time ministry if you're a housewife. You're in a full-time job ministry if you're working as a taxi driver, or if you're working as a school teacher or whatever. It's full-time ministry, full-time job. But we know that there's some who get paid where they don't get income, kind of like the Levites in the Old Testament. The offerings and the sacrifices were for, to help them and all that. So people were ministering them out of their means. As a matter of fact, it's mentioned that women did that a lot. Even some very rich women in the Herod's royal population, royal group, Herod Stewart and all that. So there was pretty important people that were actually giving of their means to help them to be able to eat and have lodging and to travel. They were traveling preachers, traveling rabbi. He was a traveling itinerant preacher in the land of Israel. And so they didn't have work at that time. Now, there could have been in and out. Sometimes they had some time where they could go back and check on their family and see what's happened. Or some of the families may have actually traveled with them. We don't know. There's silence about all that. At least I can't think of anything at this point. So, yeah, they didn't have, their lives changed, as so do missionaries that are called to other countries. Their lives change, or people who are called into the so-called full-time ministry thing, where they're getting paid as in their positions as ministers of the gospel or something. And so, but they still have to do certain things, certain chores and things like that. But when you're traveling around, they had less to do. They keep the cleaning of their clothes and their extra tunics, or extra this or that, and people supplied with them wherever they went with food. It was rough, it was tough, and it was probably far better to go home and relax and have everything just right there. And it was probably ups and downs, and naturally sometimes it was rougher than others. But God provided, just like God provides for his people today. God provides for ministries, God provides for missionaries and all. So I think I answered the question there pretty well, maybe. Did the disciples have no, it was not a normal daily life. Normal daily life according to the ordinary get up in the morning, work. They got up in the morning, they traveled and they worked and they preached and all that. So normal daily life, family duties, yeah, that was challenging. But, more importantly was to obey the call of God in their lives. And I don't know how many had kids. Jesus knew what he was doing when he called them, and he definitely had provided what was needed for them. But I think of Jonathan Edwards and their 11 kids, and his wife. I can't think of her name. I thought it was Abigail, but I could be totally wrong. What a wife. Speaking of a virtuous woman, Proverbs 31. He would spend 13 hours a day in study, and then he would spend an hour at night with his family. And his kids seemed to turn out fantastic. One of them was another Jonathan, his second son or something, that became another almost comparable educator and Christian missionary and a Christian pastor and everything else. I think he was a pastor. He was an associate pastor at a very young age. Was it 19 or something? His grandfather took the real Jonathan Edwards and took him in, and then as an associate pastor, and the grandfather died, and he took over the responsibilities of the church. He was a prolific writer. He actually because of his labors and his continual prayer, fervency in prayer, and really a prayer life that was hot, God brought revival to that whole area of Hamptons and that area up there. Even George Whitefield came and visited him for 6 days, was it? Preached for him at his church. God used him mightily, and his kids, I think, turned out fantastic. But it was also because of a fantastic wife. I bet these guys had really amazing women behind them. Most great men have a great woman behind them. I can tell you that right now. Anybody who happens to be hearing this, which a lot of times there's not many views, any good pastor would say, amen, they'd be screaming it out like, yes. It's so amazing. The women, wait till the rewards are given out. We'll see who really caused the wind beneath their wings to fly so and soar so freely and wonderfully. Well, he had a tremendous wife that was virtuous in character and excellence and service and work, and she really did what it took to take care of that family and nurture it. And because she yielded to God's call in Jonathan Edwards' life, whether he screwed up on some of his time, eternity will tell. Maybe God dealt with him and we'll never know. God forgave him. So anyway, blah, 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 blah. I'm talking a lot here. Of course, I got to talk to Phil in this video, right? All right, did disciples have maybe a normal life? No. Family duties, others could have been well taken care of that, and they maybe really maybe they did take their kids along with them. Maybe some of them didn't have kids. That's why God chose some of them. And their work and all. And their work was tremendously hard. It's not easy to be a pastor. It's not easy to be a missionary. It's not easy. It's not a glorious position to look after. Then again, I think about the Bible does say desire to be a bishop, and that's the same thing as a pastor or an elder. So anyway, but there has to be still a call for it. God has set some in the church, apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, teachers. And so, but I can verify and vouch to say it's a really challenging and very difficult and very heart-rending position to be in. But it's worth it all, as long as we're all serving Jesus in whatever capacity God calls us to. All right, very good question. Thanks for asking.